Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, distinguished guests, and folks of all stripes, put your hands together for the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. Houston, we have Paul Salazar Jr.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast, your Houston Astros podcast for diehard Houston Astros fans from a diehard Houston Astros fan. I'm Paul Salazar Jr., your favorite diehard Astros fan podcaster. I'm a classically trained actor, a UCB-trained improviser, and a Texas-trained barbecuist and multi-hyphenate. I'm a Houston native, and I have the receipts to prove it. Slime in the ice machine! I've spent the last decades or so as a comedy writer in LA, and now I'm podcasting. So welcome to said podcast. This is the Space Cadet Sports Podcast that was born out of my Substack, the Space Cadet Sports blog. So go check that out at spacecadetsports.substack.com. You can get the articles I write, the meme dumps I post, and all of the podcasts there at the Substack. This is what my brother calls the Paul Broad Pod Ball. I always mess it up. The Paul Broad Pod Ball Blog. I should always do vocal warm-ups before this. I'm sorry I don't to my dialects and vocal coach. I'm sorry to you that I never listen to your advice. But this is the Space Cadet Sports podcast that was started with the new and refreshing perspective of actually liking the Houston Astros and being a fan of them. Famously, Chandler Rome, the athletic reporter for the Astros, doesn't like the Astros. That doesn't have to be a prerequisite for writing for the team. It just becomes a huge bummer because, as most of you Astros fans know, the media that comes out of Los Angeles and New York is not very kind to the Houston Astros players, organization, or their fan bases. So the fact that most of our beat writers out there actively hate the Astros has always been a little tough for me. I don't get it. Thank God we have Brian McTaggart. But this is a safe space for Houston Astros fans in the sense that we could actually talk about them optimistically and positively. It doesn't always have to be doom or gloom. It doesn't always have to be a hate watch. But I get it. They're clickbait people. I don't have to worry about that right now. So, we just try to be reasonable here. Keyword, try. We try to be reasonable. There's still going to be smack talk. There's still going to be plenty of emotion in the podcast, especially with the year that the Astros have had. But you can go back and check the receipts, see how I've been all year, see what I've been preaching that positivity and hope in this team. This here podcast we're recording right now from Los Angeles. You can tell I'm a Texan by the fact that I said this here podcast. You could take the Texan out of Texas, but you never take the Texas out of the Texan. We're here in Los Angeles in sunny LA recording this podcast. I'm joined by my co-host and co-producer, the Roz to my Frasier. Carla the dog is here. Hold for applause. She's here with me. She may get on mic from time to time. People that listen to the podcast know there will be a dog barking at least once in the faint background, hopefully, of this podcast. I don't allow her to get directly on mic, but I am not going to silence her voice or her opinions. That's not what we're about here. Today, we are very happy to talk about another sweep. That's right, folks. All the other teams that aren't the Astros are dealing with a sweep without the S, while the Astros are going sweeping. Very happy that the Astros not only swept the Boston Red Sox, they swept the Rays to close out this road trip, and the Astros are feeling great. Astros fans are feeling themselves. It's wonderful, folks. This team has been great. We're going to get through a lot of other topics on this off-day Goof-Off podcast. Welcome to the off-day Goof-Off podcast. These podcasts are all... for those of you who are listening, you really know. This is my first season doing the podcast. We're figuring out a lot of things. These are the type of things that are figured out as you're doing it in podcasting. So we're figuring out a lot of things. But the Off Day Goof-Off podcast is one of my favorite things that we've done so far. It just has a little bit looser of a feel. I'm probably gonna be a little less stressed because an off day for the Astros means an off day for me watching the games. I love watching the games. I love, for those of you who don't know, I watch all the games. I watch every single pitch. I do my best to watch it live. That can't always happen, but I'll go back and watch every pitch later on in the night. If I go out of town, there was one time I went out of town, I came back, I watched 4 games in a row, but having to watch the Astros every day is a privilege and a joy, but sometimes it takes up a good amount of your day. So on the Off Day Goof Off podcast, I tend to be a little lighter on my feet, a little more silly. But let's get to the series recap, folks. We're gonna talk about the Astros going into Tropicana and absolutely crushing the Rays, which was a sight to see because the Rays were the Astros' first opponent out of the trade deadline. The Astros were just buyers, and not buyers in this type of way that Astros fans were very comfortable with at that time. Now Astros fans are hushing up. They're pretty happy about Yusei Kikuchi, but at the time there was a lot of chatter, a lot of people that think they are good enough to be the general manager of the Houston Astros talking that ish out there on the internet, talking about Dana Brown, not really knowing what they're talking about. And I get it, that's my job. My whole job is to not know what I'm talking about, hit record, and go out here and do a fan podcast. So, I get it. There's times that I say things that I immediately have to retract or say that, that was a bit of emotion right there. I don't think that's correct. I don't think I do that too much. Go back and let me know. At the at the end of the year, we definitely will check the receipts. We'll have at least one episode where we can have a good laugh about the things that I completely got wrong or completely went off the handle with immediately and was incorrect about. But yeah, a lot of fans were not happy about the Yusei Kikuchi trade. They weren't happy with the players that the Astros brought in, whereas the Rays sold off about 150 baseball players at the trade deadline and still managed to beat the Astros in a series right out of the gate for the trade deadline, and things felt tight. So it's good to see the Astros, now that they have some momentum, now that they're kind of figuring the roster out a little bit post-trade deadline, they are getting a whole lot better in a very short time, being able to sweep these Rays at home. But let's get to game 1. The Astros won the first game of the series against the Rays 6-1, with Framber Valdez and Yainer Diaz really stealing the show. All of the headlines were about what an amazing battery mates they are. Framber Valdez and Yainer Diaz go from being unsure partners to dominating battery buds. You love to see it. There was that little moment in the beginning of the season where Framber Valdez went rogue. He went off script, shaking off Yainer Diaz, and kind of got blown up in the game. I believe that was in Los Angeles against the Angels. It definitely was against the Angels. And that kind of cast some doubt on the relationship between Framber Valdez and Yainer Diaz. Framber Valdez was famously caught by Martin Maldonado last season. Framber Valdez has the allegations of being a bit of a head case against him, which I don't try to say that disparagingly. Look, I have a lot of anxiety and a lot of paranoia myself. I cannot be out here throwing shots at people that need to breathe and be in the moment before they do something. That's what I have to do all the time. I say that jokingly but lovingly. But I do think that Framber Valdez, through no fault of his own, through just basically people having zero empathy out there, really has a bad rap about not being the most mentally strong pitcher. He's worked with a therapist. He's worked with a sports therapist to work through things. He found a rhythm that really worked for him. He got into a great streak in 2022, I believe, with a quality starts streak. And then Major League Baseball changed the pitching rules where there was a pitch clock, and all of that work that Framber did really there was nothing he could do with it. He could not take the moment to gather himself in between pitches anymore because there was a pitch clock. And you really have to give it to Fromber because I think a lot of people could have really crumbled in that moment. Could have really been like, well, I did all of this work to get mentally strong, and then the league comes around and does this thing where they have a pitch clock, which is actively working against all of the therapy that I did. Woe is me. The world is stacked against me. I'm just going to suck this season. And Fromber, he battled. He found a way to breathe, to be in the moment, and he might have had some up and down times the past year and a half. But it really seems like Fromber has really solidified his performance, is really starting to figure out a way to be in the moment and to not stress so much. Even in that game where Framber Valdez almost threw a shutout, a complete game shutout, he was smiling. He was laughing. He was, definitely when he gave up the homer, he was shaking his head and he was a little frustrated. But, later they cut back to him later in the inning and he's laughing and having a good time. I really think Framber Valdez has turned a corner and he's figuring it out. Now, I'm not saying that Framber Valdez will be ace material every single start for the rest of his career, but it really seems like Fromber is figuring it out and beating those allegations. And as someone who's had to work with anxiety issues and has had to work on his breathing, and I mean, it's completely silly to me that I'm a grown adult man and I'm like, I have to focus on my breath and breathe right. But when I stopped judging myself and started actually doing the breathing exercises, it really helped my anxiety. So for someone who knows what that work is like and know what it's like to judge yourself for feeling that way, I have to commend Framber Valdez as a hero and have to say that he is looking great. He pitched 5 2/3 of an inning in this game. He picked up 3 hits, gave up a run, that being an earned run, only 1 walk and 9 strikeouts. You love to see it. A solid performance for Fromber. Wasn't completely able to go 6, but that's okay at this point in the season with the way that these pitchers have had to really battle with a broken pitching rotation and the fact that they're waiting to go on a 6-man rotation and they're kind of a little tired. Framber Valdez has eaten up so many of these innings. He sopped up these innings like a biscuit. You really can't be too mad at him for not being able to go that deep into this game. He didn't get 6 innings. No, he still had a great performance. Then Taylor Scott came in. He's been a little shaky as of late, but he came in and gave a pretty good performance, pitching 1 1/3 of an inning with only 1 hit and got 2 strikeouts. Obviously, kept the Astros in it, didn't let the game get out of hand, getting him in there when the game was up just to see what he could do in case he kind of got into a little trouble was good. You kind of have Taylor work through some of those issues that's been kind of eating at him lately. Then Ort came in, Caleb Ort. He pitched 2 innings and got 2 strikeouts. It really was great to see. I thought I had more pitching notes in my little note box here to kind of reference, but that kind of is what I have written down for the game. I think that's just because I was I had so many notes about Fromber. I didn't want to overwhelm. It's going to be kind of a long episode, but we'll kind of get back to Scott, I know, later, but it was good to see Ort as well. Actually, Ort makes another performance as well, so that's why I don't have any notes there. We'll talk about Scott and Ort a little bit later, but they obviously were able to go in, not give up any more runs in this inning, and keep it safe with the Astros, not having to worry about the Rays making a comeback here. Now, for the offense, obviously, this was a much better offensive game than some of the offensive games past. There's been some, even with the sweep of the Red Sox, there was a low-scoring game out of Boston there that the Astros had to deal with. Wow, sorry, really needed a coffee break there, folks. I won't do that too many times throughout the episode, or maybe I'll have to give you a trigger warning for misophonia. Or misophonia? Look, I mispronounce everything. All of you know that. I mispronounce so many players' names. It's not fair. At the end of the year, any baseball player that wants to mispronounce my name, and just send an audio recording of that into the podcast, I'll play them all. Like, I do apologize profusely for any player's name I mispronounce, but I mispronounce a lot of names. That's a lot of words, honestly. But let's get to the offense here. Enough about my pronunciation. Bregman really was so great. He powered his 18th homer in the first. Overall in this game, he went 1 for 5 with 2 strikeouts. But Bregman is definitely feeling it. Then Jordan, who had a bit of a tough game, he had 3 strikeouts, but he went 2 for 5 with an RBI. It's so crazy. Like, even when Jordan kind of has his struggles, he's so good. Arguably, this season, Jordan hasn't had the consistency or the power that we've wanted him to see. Early in the season, he was really patient, kind of picking up more strikeouts than we'd like to see, being so patient that you think that he probably could do damage with pitches earlier in the count. It seems like he was really working the count more than anything else. Then it seemed like he had a bit of a power drop-off at some point. He went like 50 games without hitting a home run, which, is not that big of a deal. And when you look at Jordan's stats, he really is, for having a bit of a quote, off season, he is fantastic. Like, if this is the floor for a hitter, Jordan Alvarez, like, he's still picking up intentional walks. He's still absolutely feared and dominated. If this is his floor, I mean, we are spoiled. We are spoiled to have Jordan Alvarez as an Astro. Tuve in this game went 2 for 5, and Yanner hit a Yanner bomb, his 11th of the season, to put the Astros way ahead early, 5-0 in the third inning. Jordan really has been good, but Yanner Diaz has really started to showcase that offensive power. He went through a little bit of a drought there in the early summer. I think, I was preaching patience with Yanner. I was like, look, this is his first season as a full catcher. There's a lot of responsibilities for a catcher, a lot of wear and tear on those legs. I was like, we'll have to see what type of offensive player Yanner Diaz is as a full-time catcher. It's completely different to be a backup catcher, a DH, and kind of a guy off the bench type of a hitter versus being an everyday catcher. There's a lot more wear and tear on the body. There's a lot more time in meetings and game planning. There's just a lot to do. So it's good to see Yanner Diaz kind of get through some of those bumps where he's kind of learning his job and all that the job entails in his first season here as a catcher, and to start returning to power here as a hitter, as well as taking his defensive game and his game planning seriously. Not that he never took it seriously. I don't even know why I said that. That's not to insinuate anything. He's always been a hard worker. That's all that's been said about him. Just an off word that I didn't want to be misconstrued about his efforts or performance. The offense went 3-8 with runners in scoring position in this game, leaving 6 men on base. But overall, they got 10 hits, 6 RBIs, only walked twice, but picked up 11 strikeouts, which was completely insane to see. Just 2 walks and 11 strikeouts. You'd think that would be a bad game, but the 2 home runs, the power of the long ball really covers over some of the sins of this offense. The bottom of the lineup was 1 for 11 with 1 walk, 1 RBI, and 4 strikeouts. 1 for 11 is pretty tough, but being able to earn that walk, being able to earn 1 RBI in that 1 hit, and only striking out 4 times in those 11 at-bats, you kind of have to look at it like, little silver lining here, for being such a terrible performance from the bottom of the lineup. They battled. They picked up a walk. They didn't strike out that frequently. They were able to contribute with an RBI. The bottom of the lineup has been a little tough lately, but it was good to see that even for a terrible performance, they were able to get just enough to help the team. The Astros got ahead early. Framber led up his only run and the staff's only run in the third, and the team did not look back from there. The offense knocked the starter out in the 5th inning, which is a great sign from the offense. It's what they like to do, and they do well when they're firing on all cylinders. Moving over to Game 2, it was a little bit of a closer game in the middle game here. The Astros ended up winning 3-2. Jordan, in the beginning of the game, the biggest headline, honestly, Jordan broke the Rays scoreboard at the Trop. Is this a forgotten Josh Gad Pac-Man movie? Because all I saw were pixels. Jordan destroyed that poor scoreboard. It looked worse for wear for most of the game. Don't worry, it is back up and functioning. I don't think Jordan will have to pay for it, but the joke was that Jordan, made with, I believe, Brian McTaggart, is like, if there's no video evidence, I don't make me pay for it. I don't send me the bill, and I get it. If I was Jordan, I would not want to be paying for the scoreboard that I'm breaking. I don't know. Maybe they got to cover it with the net whenever Jordan's there. I don't know. But Jordan is obviously a very powerful guy, and there was video proof of him breaking the scoreboard. So, if you need to, we'll start a GoFundMe for you, Jordan. We don't want you paying for that scoreboard either. The pitching in this game, Yusei Kikuchi started this game and went 5 2/3 of an inning. He picked up 3 hits, 1 run, and only 1 earned run with 5 strikeouts, picking up his 6th win of the season. Another pitching performance from the Astros that goes into the 6th inning and only lets up 1 run. You love to see it. Kind of misses the mark of a quality start, just slightly like Fromber the day before, but truly, what more can you ask for? With it is a quality start out of your pitcher, especially when you don't have to pitch an extra pitcher in the inning like Joe Espada did both games. You would have liked to see him make it through the 6th inning, but there was a Jose Altuve error, only his 2nd on the year. But there feels like there's been so many defensive issues and so many busted defensive plays that there'd be a lot more errors, but not from Jose at least. It was good to see Yusei Kikuchi have a good performance. Without that error, he would have made it through the 6th. So you got to give him his flowers. And yeah, you can't be too hard on Jose Altuve for it. It's his 2nd error of the season. The Astros ended up winning the game. But there's been so many little defensive issues every now and then. You just kind of hold your breath and you worry if it's going to come back and bite you in the butt later on in the game. Abreu came in after in the 6th inning to pick up that 1/3 of an inning, and he pitched into the 7th, overall going 1 1/3 inning with 2 strikeouts, picking up his 30th hold on the year. Then Presley came in to pitch the 8th, and it was a bit of a tough outing for Press. He pitched 1 inning, gave up 2 hits, 1 run, 1 earned run, 1 walk, and picked up a strikeout, but still getting his 21st hold. Presley continues to struggle on the season. Don't be too mean to him, folks. Presley's mom is out there saying that people have been mean on the internet. Don't be mean to people's moms and people's family out there, folks. It's weird enough that you're out there just being cruel to a baseball player on your team. The last thing you need to do is harass people's family. That's not who we are as fans. That's not who we're not Yankees fans. We're not. It's okay, Carla. Carla hears people coming at the driveway. But yeah, she also gets upset when people are mean to people's families. But we're not. We're not those people, folks. Presley is struggling, but I don't know quite what it is. And I think to the people that are like, Presley struggling and this is the organization's fault for bringing in Hader. Well, in this game, Hader picked up his 26th save. He beat the franchise record for consecutive saves and consecutive save opportunities. Yeah, he hasn't been perfect, but he's been a good closer. He's been an elite closer this season. If he continues down this track, he does seem like he is worth the big contract the Astros signed for him this season. Meanwhile, Ryan Presley was really starting to show signs of regression. I know it's kind of hard to hear, especially when he has such great playoff performances. But really, overall, he's shown signs of regression. He's not a big velocity guy. He's a guy that depends very much on his location. And I think the Astros were just starting to worry about the future of their closing situation. They saw a closer on the market that was willing to work with them. I think signing Hader was a great call, even if it means that Presley had to move to the 8th and Presley was going to have to go through some bumps and bruises to learn how to adjust to his new role. I don't think Presley's like some kind of prima donna that is actively bitter or very hurt every time he takes the mound. I just think it's an adjustment to him working a new inning, having a little bit of a newer mentality about it, And I think he's just missing on location a lot more than he used to. I don't know if it's age. I don't know if it's mentality. I don't know if it's the way he's preparing and attacking, or if it's just he's missing location and getting some bad luck. We're hoping that Presley can figure it out. We're hoping that this is not a long-term issue. But it does make things tense, because if Presley does not figure this out this season, I don't think moving him to the 7th is going to help the situation much if it is a mental thing. Now, if he's being honest and saying it's not a mental thing, it's just performance and him needing to figure things out, maybe moving him to the 7th for a bit will work while he figures it out. But if it is a mental thing and you don't want to kill that confidence, moving him to the 7th inning really isn't going to help many situations there. And then you're going to have a player in the playoffs, a reliever that you're going to have on the roster. You're not going to take Presley off the roster even if he's struggling, but you're not going to really know when to deploy him unless it's a blowout game, which isn't exactly what you want for Presley either. So we will see. We're rooting for him here. But moving on to the offense, Yainer Diaz continued to have a good game, or really I should say a good offensive run, starting off by tying up the game in the third with runners on first and second. He ended up going 2 for 4 with an RBI in this game. And speaking of being on a roll, Breggy has another home run in another game, going 4 games in a row, hitting the long ball. Breggy's 19th of the year came in the 5th and put the Astros up 2-1. His line this game was 3 for 5 with 2 runs and 1 RBI. And if that wasn't enough, the Astros continue to hit the long ball, with Pena popping his 11th on the season in the next inning to keep the Astros ahead. He went 2 for 4 in the game with 1 RBI. Once again, the bottom of the lineup has slight struggles getting on base with low strikeouts. But overall, the offense gets 9 hits with 3 RBIs, only working 2 walks but picking up 9 Ks to keep the game close. But the Astros' long ball once again is a savior. This game more than the other because the team actually scored a couple runs and the Astros didn't have as many men on base as the other game. The long ball saved us, folks. Without the Astros hitting as many home runs as they had in the past week, this team would have really struggled for these wins a whole lot more and would have had to depend on the back end of the rotation in bigger, more stressful situations, and that would have led to more and more pitchers being used out of that bullpen. Thank God we had the long ball. Jordan is starting to trend down a little bit after sharing co-player of the week honors with Breggy. We did not mention that in the podcast. Just wanted to give him a big shout out, a co-shout out. I am a co-host and co-producer with Carla. I know what it's like to share the spotlight. But it was great to see both Breggy and Jordan not only have a dominant week, but for both of them to be awarded for their efforts, because honestly, they carried the team. They're going to continue to carry this team at least until Tucker comes back, and then I'm already salivating thinking about Kyle Tucker coming back. I can't wait for it. Just the presence of Jordan, though, getting back to Jordan and his performances, and kind of lack of a bit of power here and lack of offense in the first 2 games versus the Rays. But just the presence of Jordan keeps pitchers honest and managers wanting to intentionally walk him. So you love to see it. Before we get to Game 3, I just wanted to remind people really quickly, I never do a really good job of this, but just a reminder that we do have a Substack. This podcast is formed out of my Substack, but if you want to go check that out, you can get every podcast. We have video podcasts there, all the articles I write for the Astros, and not, I would say famously, it is not quite the right word, but a little bit more popularly, I do have a lot of memes there that I post. A lot of people like the memes. Go check out the memes at the Substack. That's spacecadetsports.substack.com, where you can put your email in and become a space cadet like me, I guess, and get every single meme, every single article and podcast emailed to you directly, folks. But let's go ahead and move on to Game 3 here. This game was kind of a bit of a tough one. It started off with some defensive struggles from Zach DeZenzo, who is playing at first base. It's good to see Zach DeZenzo out there. We've seen some Yainer Diaz. We've seen a lot less John Singleton as of late. Zach DeZenzo definitely had had a nice little run there where he was picking up some hits. Yainer Diaz picked up a game at first base so that Caratini and Diaz could start in the same game. I do think we'll see a little bit more Singleton sprinkled back into the platoon, but I think the Zenzo has just been hot enough where the Astros are trying to figure out a way to figure out how to deploy him. He's even taking outfield reps, Zenzo. So there might be an opportunity for him to be a corner outfielder here back at Minute Maid if McCormick and Dubon are still struggling a bit to have consistency. Zach DeZenzo might be deployed in the outfield. But in this game, he was playing first. He struggled on some fairly routine grounders. I mean, it's not fair to call any root grounder hit directly at first or third routine because those hot corners are super hot. But DeZenzo kind of struggled getting his glove on the ground and following through on some ground balls hit sharply to first in the first inning and on the third inning. And it just felt a little tight at first because these games were such pitchers' duels all the way through it that you just felt that any error or any issue walk was going to come back and haunt this team. It was such a good pitcher's duel, but it was not the best feeling when this Astros offense has been rolling to see them kind of stymied and slowed down a bit. When Pena popped his 12th popper of the season with a solo homer off of Littell, who had a good game, but just one Littell problem, obviously. It was Pena's third home run in 4 games. It's good to see Pena power back, but you know, it was the lone little pop of offense in the game for quite some time until the Rays were able to tie it up later in the game. But let's talk about Ronel a little bit. Ronel Blanco, he had a great game, but he almost got destroyed by a line drive coming back at him in the 6th. The game. I kind of just lost my stat notes here. Let's see, where is Blanco? Yeah, he got hit by a comebacker in the 6th. He ended up going 6 innings pitched with 2 hits, 0 runs, 0 earned runs, 4 strikeouts and 0 walks, lowering his strikeouts as time has gone on, but still performing and battling. I mean, at least through 4 innings for all of his starts, Ronel has been out there battling and fighting and doing very good and giving good performances. So seeing him hit with this comebacker was not a great feeling. X-rays are negative. It seems like there's no concerns for Ronel right now, but that was not what the Astros needed in that moment. Ort came in the 7th and walked 2 before getting an out, being lifted out of the game with 1/3 of an inning pitch, 2 walks, and he picked up his first hold on the season. You know, we've been very happy with Caleb Ort's performances so far. He's definitely been solid, you know, kind of like a medium-sized Shady out there. You know, he's really been good for the team. This was his first kind of really tough, really iffy performance, so they lifted him out of there quick and brought Taylor Scott in after that out. Taylor Scott was missing missing some of his spots, is what I'm trying to say. Taylor Scott missing his spots, looking less sharp, but gets out of trouble in the 7th, going 2/3 of an inning pitched with 1 strikeout, picking up his 6th hold of the season. I think Scott needs a little bit of a break. I don't know if pitching him back-to-back games is going to yield you the same results as it has earlier in the season. He's been pitching a lot of innings, a lot more innings than he's used to, and he just looks less sharp. He's throwing more pitches off the plate and not competitive enough to get swings and whiffs. He's just kind of missing his spots. It doesn't, being a little less sharp with his movement. I think Taylor Scott is just tired. Bringing in a 6th man bringing in Justin Verlander for a 6-man rotation can be really good for the bullpen if the starters are all able to eat innings. If the starters aren't able to eat innings, there could be a situation where the bullpen is just feeling a little tighter and you have to pitch them on more back-to-back games. I do think Taylor Scott has been amazing this season, but if the Astros can't figure out a way to get him more rest, I can see maybe even a reality where he finds some time in AAA, kind of resting up before they bring him back up for the playoffs. But he's not that alarming yet. He hasn't yielding those very bad results, but you can just see that I think from my perspective, in my humble fan opinion, he looks like he's a little exhausted. And speaking of overuse and exhaustion, Abreu came in and pitched the next inning. He walked the first batter, and running bases, great base running from Tampa Bay, and some lackluster, or not lackluster, just kind of slightly just not good enough defense from Houston combined to make Abreu pay for the leadoff runner. Abreu ended up going 1 inning pitched, giving up 1 run, that being an earned run on a walk, getting his 4th blown save of the season. Abreu has pitched so many games this season. I think 60 games or 60 innings. I don't have it right in front of me, but I believe it's 60 games, so I might not be right on that inning count. But Abreu has been Mr. Bullpen for the Astros, for better or worse. He's had some tough games. He's had some tough outings, but he has been the guy that the Astros can give the ball in big situations and just trust his talent. The back end of the bullpen for the Astros really has not played out the way that the Astros anticipated at the beginning of the season, thinking it was going to be a Dotel, Lidge, Wagner situation. But they're kind of getting there. And I do think right now Abreu's biggest problem is overuse. And not that the Astros should not have used him. His job as a young power arm is going to be leaned on in that bullpen, especially when there are more question marks in the middle innings, relievers, and the tougher outings are being shown from Presley and Hader in the beginning of the season. Abreu really was going to be depended on as being that young fire thrower in the bullpen. But I think that it's starting to hurt him a little bit more now in the dog days of summer, in the deep part of summer here. You can feel that wear and tear from Abreu. Abreu is another guy that could use a little bit more rest in between his pitches, his pitch outing, his outings. I'm trying to say, I think that he's just feeling a little bit of exhaustion. If we can, get Ort or Ferguson, or even, I'm not even sure, Taylor Scott's a little, Ort, Ferguson, and King. If we can get those guys to have some better performances, or just get a spot to trust them in some bigger situations, that could get Abreu and Scott to have a little bit more rest. Then after the blown save, Hader came in a non-save situation with the game tied in the 9th. This has been a bit of a problem for Hader this season, and a huge issue with Joe Espada critics that are Astros fans. For some reason, they're saying that Hader should not be used when the game is tied or the Astros are behind. I'm of the belief that you use your best relief pitcher at the right moment at any time. So if it's the 9th inning and the game is tied, if it's the 9th inning and you're behind and you're trying to win, you use your best pitcher. I get that it's a non-save situation and it's a different mentality, but I really think a lot of these pitchers, while they have an ideal situation they like to go into, they are capable of pitching in different situations. This was not a narrative we had to worry about in this game, as Hader came in and dominated the 9th, making it a really short inning, and then closing out the 10th, getting his 27th save in as many opportunities, picking up his 5th win of the season, pitching 2 innings and going for 3 strikeouts. The Astros are streaking, living the sweep life with Zach and Jose. You love to see it, folks. I think Hader was really great in this game, and you see that he's willing to pitch back-to-back innings for the Astros. You see that he's willing to do everything it takes to win for this team, because he knows he's on a winning franchise now, and that this team has a chance to go deep into the playoffs. And I think it's, for the diva kind of label that Hater got, I don't think that's absolutely true. He seemed to be a team player since he's been on this team. And, there was never a moment when in the middle of the Astros, terrible run that he's like, no, I'm not going to pitch 2 innings, or no, this team isn't going to win, so I'm not going to do it. He's been there for us, and he's been consistent. Kind of talking about the Astros and this... the Astros offense here, obviously, it was tied in the 10th. In the 10th inning, Mauricio Dubon uses his hit at all cost mentality to string together a little bit of a run there for the Astros to get a run in extras, putting the Astros over the top and setting up a safe situation. Pedro Leon was the ghost runner on second and found a little bit of heat when he ran to third base off of a sacrifice fly to center field and didn't slide, kind of put on the brakes before he went to third and almost cost the Astros an out that would have been the game-winning run. I do think that it is a tough look, but Pedro Leon is very much going through a learning curve right now. He's learning that Jose Siri and these outfield arms are not to be messed with. He needs to hustle. He needs to get there. He's playing at a different talent level now, and he's adjusting to this talent level. I don't think it's a laziness thing or any kind of these crazy takes that people are saying. I think it's just a kid out there being young, adjusting to the league. I don't think he's going to make that mistake again, and if he does, he's going to find himself riding the bench and probably being sent back down to AAA. So I feel like he knows that. I feel like he's figuring that out, and he will find out if he doesn't change that mentality. But I don't think that was his. I think that was just kind of a brain fart. We will see. Either way, Pedro Leon has had a tough start to his Astros career, already living in the shadow of Joey Loperfido, but then just really not finding his power and kind of finding his way into the Astros fans, bad list here. But I think Pedro Leon will find it. He's been in a tough situation and has not been able to execute the way that he's wanted to, or the way the organization has wanted him to. But I do have hope for him. Don't freak out, all these fans that are like, we gave up Joey Loperfido for this. Pedro Leon is very much a good baseball player. Hopefully he will figure it out. We don't know what these prospects will still turn into. But that being said, Joey Loperfido is hitting 128 since joining the Toronto Blue Jays. I mean, it's only been 10 games, but he's batting 128 and striking out 49% of the time. It's tough to adjust to a new clubhouse and adjust to a new team. I'm not saying that either one of these players' career is over. I'm just saying that, it's kind of nuts to kind of criticize this trade so much at this time, comparing Leon and Loperfido. So far, they're giving very similar performances, and they most likely were going to give very similar performances on this season. The way we will have to judge this trade is going to be on these performances that these players give in the future. Obviously, the Astros having another tough offensive game here was not what you wanted to see. They only scored 2 runs on 2 hits, so it was a tough one. But you really have to give credit to the Rays pitching staff. I feel like the Rays and the Astros are really good at getting performances out of their pitching staff that a lot of teams and organizations can rate kind of mid pitchers or just regular guys. The Astros and Rays are able to get great performances out of them. So this pitching battle was absolutely fantastic, but it's not what you wanted to see from the Astros offense. Hopefully their offense will find a way to turn it around. We're going to go ahead and move on right now. Kind of to a quick little moment. We try not to have too many serious moments on the podcast, but I do feel like I'd be remiss not to mention this thing that happened against the Astros in the Red Sox series. Or not against the Astros, but while the Astros were playing the Red Sox in the Red Sox series, Jarren Duran, who is an up-and-coming player in the league, had a just despicable moment, honestly. There's really no other way to say it. When he used a homophobic slur against a fan in the Astros Red Sox series. He's been suspended for 2 games and served that suspension. He's come back and said that it's been a tough time, a time for growth and learning. But it's just so wild to drop a slur while looking in the direction of your colleagues and getting caught on mic. And on top of it, the thing that really was wild to me is that you're like, okay, this guy, used a slur, used some really strong language. What happened to him? What caused him to do this? You always try to have a little bit of empathy. I don't have a lot of room in my heart for people that are intolerant. I'm intolerant of intolerance, if you will. But you think about, well, what causes a person to do something like this? In this instance, it was a chirp of a person in the fan, and it really could have. I'm sure it was a Red Sox fan. Let's be honest. They chirp against their own fans there. I'm not trying to be like it. He talked harshly to an Astros fan. That's not the point. The point is he used language that nobody should ever use. He used language that nobody should ever use when someone said that he needed a tennis racket. Which, I don't know. That seems like a very, very low quality chirp to be using hate speech. Everything about this situation seems that this guy is very quick to use a slur when emotional. I do hope that Duran can show that he has empathy and wants to truly grow from this experience, but it is a sad reminder that we live in a world that empowers people right now to use terrible language because things are too, quote, woke or too, quote, PC. But the reality of the situation is using a homophobic slur and racial slurs or any epithet of any kind is despicable. A group of people tell you that a word is offensive to them and causes hurt and pain. And your idiotic reaction is to claim that you are being attacked because you want to use hate speech is insanity. If you are one of these fools who thinks it's funny, it isn't. I've been paid for my jokes. I've been able to live in LA for over a decade by being a writer, by being primarily a comedy writer, and I can tell you, derogatory language isn't funny. It's hateful. And we live in a world where there's a whole movement to try to empower people to use hate speech more readily. Even another podcaster out there who is a lot more famous than me had a comedy special where he's making jokes, dropping homophobic slurs, saying that we should be able to use this type of hate speech. And it's angering to me. Men tell you that is funny, and it isn't. It's mostly men who are telling you this kind of hate speech and this kind of anti-woke kind of stuff is funny. But it's sorry, I'm really going off here, but it's foolish to think that empathy and human compassion are for the weak. It isn't. We should all take care of each other, and the fact of the matter is, if you're a man, if you are saying you are a man, you have privilege in this society, and to be a real man, you should take care of others, especially those that are underprivileged and need protection. We aren't supposed to be bullies and exclude people. We should be strong enough to protect more people. That's what men should do. You protect your loved ones, you protect your family, you protect your community, and you should be strong enough to protect those who are outside of your community. That should be what you should strive to be as a man, is somebody who protects people, who makes people feel safe, and who encourages people. Not these people that say that we should hurt people and should alienate people and exclude people. I speak to men directly because hate speech seems to be a male issue right now. But if you're a man, compassion isn't weak. Hate is weak. Be strong enough to support and care for others. Let's end this type of hate speech and racism and homophobia in baseball, because this is a place for fans of all types, and we should welcome members of our community that just want to watch and enjoy baseball, and a safe place for them to just simply exist and be themselves. So I'll move on from this subject, but all I want to land on is encourage you that if you're somebody who thinks it's funny to use hate speech, really consider it and really take some time to look inside of yourself and see why you think this is funny or why you think it's true, because truly it isn't good to be an unempathetic person. You should be a strong man. Strong men take care of others, have empathy, show concern for their community and loved ones, and show concern and love for people outside of their community, and try to make this world a better place and safe for people. Be strong. Love is strong. Hate is weak. Moving on. Penn Murphy is a player that the Astros have had on their roster all season, but has not been able to see the playing field due to injury. Penn Murphy had a minor league outing this past week and will have another scheduled outing today. Murphy boasts a 1.29 ERA last season and a sub-3 ERA in his rookie season. Another arm just wouldn't hurt, and you'd like to see more fresh bullpen arms because, frankly, the Astros need them. We're talking about how guys are exhausted in the bullpen. Not everybody in the bullpen completely gives you 100% confidence. So having another arm in there just at the ready, or at least rehabbing and going to AAA and potentially being ready for the beginning of next season would be great. So we're rooting for Penn Murphy there. Kyle Tucker has been running around. Espada sounds optimistic, but until he's on a minor league rehab, we really have got to hold our horses. You're excited to see it. Tucker going back home to Tampa Bay. You're happy that he traveled with the team and is getting more movement in there. But there has not been an update, at least at the recording of this podcast. So we're hoping and praying and wishing. I'm saving all of my wishes that Tucker comes back soon. He really seemed like he was about to blow up and have an MVP style season. So it's just, while the Astros have been winning and have been climbing up that AL West standing and creating space between the Mariners and them, we still could use a bat like Tucker. What team wouldn't want Tucker to be in their lineup? Real quick, a couple podcast corrections here. Oh man, I didn't know I had. I'm glad that. It's funny. I produce the podcast obviously with Carla. We both write down notes for me to read off of here. But sometimes I'll be like, I made a mistake. I didn't know this, but I wrote this. Of course I did. In the last series versus the Red Sox, I totally omitted that James Paxton was lifted from the game. In the third game of the series when the Astros blew up the Red Sox for a lot of runs. It really helped to have a bullpen game and help the Astros clinch the sweep of the Red Sox, who are going to be a little bit hungrier when we catch them again at Minute Maid. I just say that because, it seemed like we made a little bit easy work of the Red Sox, who were actually having a really great season. I think that when we play the Red Sox in Minute Maid, they're going to be a little bit of an angrier team, a little bit of a spicier team than we saw in Boston. We will see. Another thing I wanted to mention in this podcast before we wrap up is the corner outfield. We've mentioned it a couple times in the past. Sometime in the middle of the season, it truly felt like we had an overabundance of outfielders. It felt like there was a logjam. We traded Corey Julks. We traded Joey Loperfido. We felt like we had plenty of outfielders. But with Tucker being gone all summer, the offense is lacking some power, and it's now apparent that Astros need to improve at corner outfield, at least for on-base percentage and slugging from the corner outfield. First base has been an issue, and now outfield is kind of looking thin when it comes to production, not exactly when it comes to bodies. When the offense is cooking and knocking in runs with homers, the lineup can carry a couple of kind of underachieving performers looking to find their swing. Obviously, that's what the Astros, whole mentality was with Jose Abreu at the beginning of the season. If the Astros can just find some power in the middle of their lineup, that power can cover over the sins of some of the lack of power from underachievers. Obviously, it didn't go exactly as Jose Abreu or the Astros wanted to, but right now the Astros have found some power again. So that happening really helps out the corner outfielders who have been struggling. But right now, as the Astros are making a push, as the Astros are still waiting for Kyle Tucker to have a green light to come back to this team, I'm feeling nervous. And just in case Kyle Tucker comes back a lot later than we anticipated, I am looking for Chas McCormick. I am looking for Pedro Leon. And to a little bit of a lesser extent, I'm looking for Mauricio Dubon to find some power again, or at least to find some hitting so that they are contributing at the bottom of the lineup. Because Zach DeZenzo is waiting in the wings, taking some outfielding drills, and he would be more than happy to see if he can produce in the outfield and at the plate. And I think, before we get to let's get to this real quick. Blake Snell has really been pitching amazingly as of late. And, when I was talking about receipts earlier in the podcast, this is one of the things that I feel like might come to be one of my tougher takes. I don't think I'm completely wrong yet, but we will see. I have always said that Blake Snell was not who we wanted on this team. Now, I obviously have been wrong, because Blake Snell, post All-Star break, has really been an incredible pitcher, showing that he can be a Cy Young type, give Cy Young performances, if nothing else. Maybe not having a Cy Young season, but giving Cy Young performances from the Southpaw. But I think my whole thing was I would have preferred the narrative is that the Astros should have went for more starting pitching at the beginning of the season, as opposed to signing Josh Hader for a 5-year, $95 million contract, because the Astros have obviously dealt with more starting pitching issues this season. So Dana Brown is wearing that as an L, and I think it's a bit foolish, because I think Josh Hader was the signing to make. I think Blake Snell was too expensive and was showcasing that he perhaps wasn't the healthiest and is a notorious slow starter. So my thing is, let's just play a little devil's advocate. Let's just play a little what if you will. I think if the Astros signed Blake Snell, that means they don't sign Josh Hader. I think that if the Astros signed Blake Snell has a terrible start to the season, like he had a terrible start to the season with the Giants. I think that the Astros' tough start to the season and Blake Snell's tough start to the season compounds on itself. Just like Jose Abreu was DFA'd, I think Blake Snell would not be DFA'd, but would really be causing Astros fans a lot of anger and frustration, the same way that Jose Abreu did, and the Astros fans would want him traded or off the team, period. And maybe that would create such a terrible situation that the Astros would lose a lot more than they lost in April and May this season. And I say that because if we don't have Hader, then we're running Abreu and Presley out there with a question mark in the 7th inning. Maybe Scott or Martinez play that 7th inning, and they don't really have a good enough season because they just keep getting blown up for being put in high-pressure spots. Maybe Montero plays that 7th inning and absolutely gets destroyed and DFA'd a whole lot earlier. Maybe Presley doesn't excel in the 9th inning and pitches the way that he's been pitching all season long, and it has nothing to do with the mental thing. It's all physical, and he really starts to struggle and starts to lose his closing spot to Brian Abreu. Meanwhile, the Astros are losing games, are having Blake Snell go up there every 5th game and do terribly. The Astros are no longer in contention and trade off a bunch of players at the trade deadline. Now, I'm not saying that's exactly how it will play out, but I'm just saying I don't know if Blake Snell was the right person to get, because I don't think he would have gelled with the Astros in that moment. Now, if we could have Blake Snell post All-Star game, that's completely different. But guess what? We have Yusei Kikuchi now. So I don't think it is that big of an issue or that big of a thing to stress on, but it is kind of tough to see Blake Snell go out and have this kind of outstanding performance when I was saying that he wasn't going to have a great year. So I definitely have to own up to that, and I owe Blake Snell an apology. You're doing it, Blake. Your performance has been better than my podcast performance. So, I got to give you props for that, dude. Shame on me. I got that one wrong. We're going to go ahead and move on to, after I got that one wrong, let's see what else I can be wrong about. But let's go ahead and move on to the White Sox Astros preview that starts tomorrow. 3-game series in the juice box. We are hoping that the Astros can dominate this team that has really struggled, one of the worst performing teams in all of baseball and in the history of baseball with their losing streak that they went on. Hopefully the Astros can dominate the Chicago White Sox. Tomorrow, Spencer Arrighetti will go to the mound for the Houston Astros. He's been 5-10 on the season. He now has a 5.14 ERA and 129 strikeouts and 105 innings pitched with a 1.45 WHIP. Spencer Arrighetti is working those numbers down, but those strikeout numbers are definitely going up. You love to see it. He's going to pitch against Garrett Crochet. Crochet is 6-9 with a 3.65 ERA, 167 strikeouts with a 1.09 WHIP. However, in his last 7 games, Crochet has a 5.81 ERA with more walks and less strikeouts and a higher WHIP. So maybe, just maybe, we can catch Crochet as he's kind of struggling and trending down, and we can just put the hurt on him and get him out of the game early and really damage the White Sox bullpen. You get Crochet out of the game, have the White Sox really eat into their bullpen, and just have them have bullpen issues the rest of the series. That is a key to success. Hopefully we can, like I'm saying, if Crochet is going through some struggles, the Astros offense can just go in and put the pressure on him. And it's funny because lately I've been saying the offense needs to be pretty patient. But in this game, I do think it would behoove them to put the pressure on early and then kind of toggle back the pressure the second time through the order and start to be more patient and knock him out of the game, hopefully by scoring runs early and getting them into deep counts as the game goes on. In the next game, the Astros are sending up Hunter Brown, who is 10-7 on the year with the 3.96 ERA, 139 strikeouts, and a 137 WHIP. He is going up against Chris Flexen, who used to play for the Seattle Mariners. Is probably where y'all know him from. Chris Flexen, a.k.a. Big Baby. He is 2-11 on the year with a 5.34 ERA, a 150 WHIP, and a low strikeout percentage. His career ERA is at 5.02, so he is slightly above his career, but generally has not had a low ERA. We're hoping that we can get Big Baby and make him cry. In the third game of the series, Framber Valdez is going up. So you'd love to see it. We get 3 guys that have completely been streaking with Spencer Arrighetti, Hunter Brown, and Framber Valdez. Framber Valdez is 12-5 on the season with a 3.38 ERA, 122 strikeouts, and a 117 WHIP. Really starting to dominate and looking like an ace this season. He will be pitching against 24-year-old left-handed pitcher Kai Bush, who is 0-1 on the season with a 5.19 ERA, a 2.31 WHIP, ouch, and 8.1 innings pitched with 5 strikeouts in only 2 games. Those are his stats. He is so young and so new that I could pretty much read you all of his stats. He did play in the Futures game, or he did get selected, I should say, to be in the Futures game in 2022. So this young man is definitely a pretty touted prospect that the White Sox are putting up there to pitch. Hopefully the Astros can do what they do against left-handed pitching and just put the hurt on him and hopefully put some slugging on him and they got to keep this offense hot. They have to continue getting on base at the top of the lineup, hitting homers and get extra base hits in the middle of the lineup, and just getting some kind of contribution, whether it's long at-bats or getting on base or sacrifice hits or flies from the bottom of the lineup. That is truly what we need right now. As long as we're hitting the long ball, we can take the pressure off the bottom of the lineup and just have them go up there and get some at-bats and find some success. And that would be great for Chas McCormick, for Mauricio Dubon, for Pedro Leon. These guys are all getting a little bit of taste from Joe Espada. Joe Espada is desperately trying to get one of these guys to catch some fire and catch some momentum. This might be the time to do it against the White Sox as the Astros are slugging out of their minds. This might be the time to get one of those guys out of their slump. On the pitching side, the pitching just needs to maintain one more rotation before JV gets back. JV is pitching in a minor league start today. I'm hoping I will be able to catch that game instead of an Astros game today. Definitely want to see how JV is doing. Would love to see what the minor leagues are looking like. But if the starting pitching can get into that sixth inning, they don't have to get a complete quality start. But if they can just get as close to a quality start as they can, this team will be set up for success, I believe, against the Red Sox. This should be a sweep. But that being said, obviously, the White Sox are still a professional baseball team. They beat the Yankees last week by double digits. So the Astros cannot play down to their talent. They have to come out of the gates swinging aggressive. They got to come out of the gates trying to stomp this team and get the sweep. How good would it be to have 3 sweeps in a row? A boy can dream, right? After the White Sox, we do have the Boston Red Sox coming into Houston, playing at the Juice Box for the next series. So we have to get ready for the Red Sox coming in and battling. I think the Astros have it, guys. I think they can get another sweep. I think they just have to come out of the gates just firing and stepping on some necks. That's what we want to see. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this podcast today, folks. Thank you so much for listening to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast Off Day Goof-Off. This is one of my favorite podcasts to do. I love an off day. Definitely feeling a little looser and sillier on the off days. I hope you are too. If you'd be so kind, please like, rate, and review this podcast wherever you're listening to it on. Subscribe to this podcast. Turn those automatic downloads on. It really does help out a small starting off podcast like myself. You know what else helps? Is if you share this with diehard Houston Astros fans out there. You know, if you've listened this far into the podcast that you are a diehard Astros fan, and you know another diehard Astros fan out there that wants some Houston content, that wants some diehard content, send this podcast to them. I really do appreciate it. And while you're out there, while you're on the internet, do me a huge solid. Go and check out the Substack. The Substack has articles, it has memes, it has podcasts. It is your go-to for Houston Astros content. And as the Houston Texans start ramping up here, I'm going to go ahead and do some football content on there too. I've been a huge Texans fan growing up. The Texans are starting to get hot again. I'm starting to feel the Texans again, so I'll do some Texans content out there. Definitely check out the Substack at spacecadetsports.substack.com. That's spacecadetsports.substack.com. You can put your email into a field there, and you can get every meme, every post, every podcast delivered straight to your email box for free. Or if you're like me and you like your cell phone or iPad a little more, you can just get the app, get the Substack app. Search Space Cadet Sports, follow me on there, click that little box that says you want notifications instead of emails. You don't get any more emails. All you get is a notification on your phone every time I post an article, a meme, or a meme dump, I should say, or a podcast. I like it a lot better that way. Plus, you get so many other writers and creators on Substack. I read Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I read Michael Ian Black. I read Paul Salazar Jr. That's me. Hey, like, if you have 3 names and you want to be a writer on Substack, go do it. It's a place for you. But yeah, go check out my Substack. And folks, if you have any questions, if you want to tell me what you like about the podcast, what you want me to do more of, if you want me to go more into stats, if you want me to explain things a little more, that you're a newer fan, you want some things kind of explained like a baseball 101, whatever you want, reach out to me. Let me know what you want, and I'll do my best to do that on this podcast. You can reach me on social media at Paul Salazar Jr. Go find me on Insta, go find me on TikTok, go find me on all the cool social media apps. Let me know what you think of the podcast. Let me know what you would like to see more of. I'd like to see what y'all want and do a little bit more of that. If you're just here for puppy pictures, let's be honest, Carla is the star of the show. You can find her Instagram at good.dog.carla on Instagram. Go check out those puppy pictures. And folks, thanks for listening to the podcast. I really do appreciate all of you out there in podcast land. I appreciate all the support. I appreciate the support for the Astros. As always, keep your head up, son, and vamos Astros.